As we have discussed many times, this Christian McCaffrey thing is turning into a situation. It's not just an injury, it's a transfer of information or how information is coming across or how we're finding it. And it's creating a lot of issues within the fan base, unrest amongst the NFL community, because obviously we understand football is a much broader sport than just individual fandoms per team. There's fantasy, there's betting, there's a lot of things riding on these games. So, on top of that, the way the information has been presented about the Christian McCaffrey situation from the very start, for a lack of a better term, it's just been messy. And not that it's necessarily been that way by design, it's just more of kind of how it's come to fruition. And I don't think it was intended to be that way. I just think, all the circumstances combined and the way information has come out, it's just been one that is not ideal, I guess you could say. So we've been trying to find information about this. Like just yesterday, we heard from Trent Williams, and we're like, oh, well, apparently Trent Williams is saying that Christian McCaffrey is telling Trent that he's going to play this year. And that we're taking that. We're like, oh, that's news, basically, because we have no idea. And so it's been an interesting development of how we've been coming into information. So here's another source. It is his dad, Ed McCaffrey. Again, great football player himself, goes on the Ross Tucker podcast and really kind of sets the context and really kind of lays it out. And I think, it's worth a listen. Like it's worth listening to from his dad's perspective, who knows absolutely everything about the situation because it's his son and they're closely connected, and how it's transpired. So take a listen to Ed McCaffrey as he joins the Ross Tucker podcast and goes in depth on how this situation has been impacting Christian and how he's been handling it. Take a look.
And Christian, I don't know what came out over the weekend. I got to be honest with you, Ed, I've never heard of bilateral Achilles tendonitis. I do know there are some guys that go to Germany for different treatments. What can you tell us about what's been going on with Christian and how involved you've been or haven't been now that he's kind of one of the older guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, Christian had a great year last year. Team came up a little short, but they went to the Super Bowl. He was Offensive Player of the Year, had a great year. And then, trained all summer. And he got married this summer. I don't know if you knew that. That was pretty cool. It was an incredible wedding. And then, right after the wedding, he didn't even take a honeymoon. He went right to training. And so, you hear all these medical terms. Look, if you have tendonitis, you have tendonitis. I don't know. I think of it like tennis elbow. You've seen tennis players get it, and then they can't play tennis for a while until it heals up. He just has that in his Achilles, and really just start it with one, and then like that kind of creeps into your calf, and then you start overcompensating, then you start feeling it in the other one. But it's just tendonitis. So I wouldn't get overly complicated, which means it's very, very sore. So I don't know if you've ever had an Achilles injury, but if you have, it's pretty hard to run when you have an Achilles injury. And so I think the team decided, hey, let's be smart with this. Let's look at our schedule. It's the beginning of the season. We don't need to put you out there at 70%. Let's get you 100% and hopefully be ready to go. So they put him on IR. And so it's not up to him. Those are, by the way, doctor's decision. He doesn't decide. He's like, I'll go if you want me to go. And they watch him run and work out and they're like, you know what, this doesn't make sense. You're injured. Let's wait till this thing settles down. And the only treatment is rest, which is so frustrating. And I promise you, I will say this, Ross, there is no player, I feel comfortable saying this, there's no player on the planet in any sport that pays as much money to have people help take care of his body than Christian does. Anybody in any sport on the planet. So, obviously he's frustrated that he can't play. He loves his teammates. Football is his life. He wants to be out on the field, win, lose, or draw. He wants to be out there battling with his brothers, and he's not doing it. So sure, that's pretty frustrating. And, but also he's such a perfectionist. Like he wants everybody's opinion. Is there anyone on the planet that can help me get back on the field quicker? And so when the prescription was, you just have to rest and not do anything, he sought out other opinions. Yeah, he went and said, look, who else has anything going on anywhere in the world that can help me get back on the field quicker? And one of the problems is you have a million. Ross, my phone blew up. Hey, here's stuff you can eat to help with your tendonitis. Here's treatments you can get. Here's a place you can go. And if my phone blew up, I know his phone was blown up. So he has to decipher between all the information he's getting, which is what he did, right? He trusts his 49ers training staff, but when the prescription is to rest, he's going to go out and get other professional opinions from people around the world. And then most of it he doesn't follow up on. He's like, I got to pick between all this stuff I'm being told, pick what to do, what not to do. So he's a real student of the game, and he's a real, health nut in terms of trying to get his body ready to go. And so it's been torturous for him to have to sit on the sideline and not play because his whole life has been kind of built around this game that he loves so much.
It's funny because I've had conversations about him with other people and just the intensity and everything he puts into it. And he strikes me as a guy that the just rest, that's tough. Like, let me rehab something. Let me do something to try to help it or make it get better. That's hard to tell someone like that rest is really the only thing. And I wonder, I mean, I don't know anything, right? But from what you said about no honeymoon and all that, I don't know if there's overusage or just because he trains so hard. Is there any chance that because he trains so hard
Yeah,
and because they keep going to Super Bowls and playoffs that maybe it just like it's a wear and tear thing? I guess that's what tendonitis is, right?
Tendonitis is an overtraining injury, meaning you're training too hard or doing too much, and it turns into tendonitis. And if I would say Christian has a weakness, it's that he sometimes has to protect himself from himself in terms of training too much and doing too much. And so we've already had that discussion. Next off season, we need to reevaluate what you're doing because, but it's hard. You just came off offensive player of the year, record-setting historic performance, and you've been doing what you've been doing, right? But maybe going all the way to the Super Bowl, losing another month of football because of the extra games and having that burning desire to get back to a Super Bowl and win it, right? You know how that motivates you in the off season. Maybe, you do have to dial it back, but it's so hard to tell him to dial it back. I mean, I'm sure his coaches will echo the same sentiment. It's like even in practice, you don't need every rep, but he never wants to sacrifice a rep, never wants to come out of a game. He trains as hard as anyone I've ever known. And so there's a limit though. Sometimes you gotta, be smart and, it worked last year, but this year, he maybe overdid it a little bit in the offseason and came in and got injured, but you never really know. Maybe it would have happened anyway, but that's part of his process. He'll go back and reevaluate everything. Knowing how he is, he'll reevaluate every day of the offseason from last year and try to figure out how do I change it so I show up ready to go this year. But again, he's had so much success doing what he's been doing. It's hard for him to deviate from that, but he'll have a good plan. He'll be back when he's back and hopefully playing at 100% and going out there and helping his team win.
I was going to ask you, Ed, what's it like having two in the NFL again for you and Lisa? But I guess with Christian being on IR, there probably hasn't been as much of an urgency to make sure someone's at every Niners game. Because I remember when it was Christian and Max, that you guys were like two ships passing in the night, right? You always wanted to have at least one at each of your son's games. Just talk through that for the listeners, because Christian will be back on the field sooner rather than later.
So obviously a lot was said here, but again, it's just an unfortunate situation is what it boils down to. Now, it does sound like at least there is an attempt to get Christian McCaffrey back on the field this year. It doesn't sound like they're like, oh, ho-hum, chalk it up. He's not going to play this year, right? So they are really trying to do whatever they can to get Christian back on the field. Ed kind of provides a little bit more context into how this injury occurs and the things and, talking about how Christian is just so, he's so dedicated to his craft that he can almost overwork himself. And obviously we saw how much work he put into last season and how much he played. And, of course there's going to be a situation where he is going to exert a lot of effort, energy, money and time into preparing his body to play the game, but there's nothing that can stop the wear and tear of playing football. It's inevitable. You're going to get beaten down, you're going to get dinged up, you're going to get injuries, and you're going to have to play through them. It's just one of the natures of the beast. So, but it was kind of fascinating to be able to listen to Ed kind of describe it all, discuss it all, and the treatments and everything he's working on, and I think just provide a little bit better context into a situation where the information has just been, you know, like I said at the beginning, a little messy, just a little, jarring the way it comes out or it comes across, and it just has everyone asking all the questions of will he play this year, will he return? And I'm just curious, what did you guys think of what Ed had to say about this situation, and how you guys feel about it? So let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.